Okay. Welcome to New York Mahanam Sevak Sangha Mahanambrata Spiritual Program for the Youth. Happy New Year to all of you. This is the first time we are meeting after 2 weeks of off time because of the holidays. Today class is special. Special in the sense, this program's name is Mahanambrata Spiritual Program for the Youth. Mahanambrata. That's the name associated with this class. And Dr. Mahanambrata Brahmachari is our spiritual leader. He's the guide, world-renowned philosopher, and he's the inspiration behind this program. Actually, we started this program almost more than 2 years ago, and he's the inspiration behind this program. So, and he's one of the ardent Vaishnava. People say that association with top-class Vaishnava, that's what he is very important. Now, association in face-to-face is very good, but if we cannot do that, when we talk about him, when we discuss about him, when we follow his books and read his books like that, that's another kind of association. So today's we have among us Kumari Indulekha Guha. She is one of the disciple of this sampradaya, disciple of Upasak Bandhu Brahmachari, who is a disciple of Mahanambrata Brahmachari ji, and she's a very good speaker. Long time we know her, our very beloved. She will be speaking today. But before she speaks, as I said again, it's very important. We can learn many things from Dr. Mahanambrata's life. Many things. As I said, association, if not, then his Sangha or Prasanga, meaning about him, to talk about him, know about him, and things like that will inspire all of us. And that will be good progress in the spiritual life. With that, we are going to start the class today. Initial kirtan will be done by Chris. Chris, go ahead, Baba. It's yours. And everybody can please follow him. It's very important that you do it. You will be muted, but do it with him. It's a practice. Practicing the kirtan is very important. So do with him. If you have instrument, you can, play it, no problem. Chris will do the live and all of us will be muted, but we'll do with him, okay? Go ahead, Baba. Chris, it's all yours.
Original Jayada Bandhu. Om Khando Mandala Karom Betong Yeno Chara Charom Tot Podong Do Shitong Yeno Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Om Gano Timim Randosho Yeno Shola Koya Joko Shlumi Litong Yeno Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Guru Rama Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Devo Parang Brahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Om Pita Shargo Pita Dharma Pita Hi Param Tapo Pitari Pitima Panne Priyante Shargo Devata Om Bhume Goryoshi Mata Sharga Rucho Taro Pita Janani Janabhumi Cha Sharga Dopi Goryoshi Om Bancha Kalpataru Bosa Kripa Shindu Voye Bosa Patitanang Pavonebo Vaishnava Namo Namo Om Bindaoy Tulushi Devoy Priyayo Kesho Shasha Vishnu Bhakti Prode Devi Shoto Bhattoy Namo Namaha Om Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwavano Shote Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Om Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishovano Shote Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Om Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paranatmane Pranato Kaleshanayo Govindayo Namo Namo He Krishna Krona Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanto Radha Kanto Namostute Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Hari Purusha Jagat Bandhu Mahauddharo Chariyasta Chanda Purta Hakita Patana Prabhu 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 Hai Ananta Anantamay Prabhu 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 Hai Ananta Anantamay Hari Purusha Jagat Bandhu Mahauddharo Chariyasta Chanda Purta Hakito Patan Prabhu 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 Hai Ananta Anantamay Prabhu 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 Hai Ananta Anantamay Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Krishna Jai Radhe Jai Jabandhu.
Hare Krishna, Jai Radhe, Jai Jagat Bandhu. Krish, you did excellent job as you do always. Now today we'll be doing the next to Shanti Matra just for a few minutes. We don't have today. We want to save time for Indu, who will be speaking on Dr. Mahanambrata Brahmachari ji. So we'll just ask Pratik and Sneha to do the Shanti Mantra, and at the end English translation. Baba, today next time we'll do it. I know Ankush, you want to do it. Next time we'll do it. Okay. Today time is a little short, so we'll do it next time.
Okay.
Pratik, go ahead. Okay. Only Pratik today.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om. May God protect us both together. May God nourish us both together. May we work conjointly with great energy. May our study be vigorous and effective. May we not mutually dispute. Om. Let there be peace in me. Let there be peace in my environment. Let there be peace in the forces that act on me.
Thanks, Pratik and Sneha. Doing as you do, always good, excellent. Thank you very much. Now we are coming to the main part of this today's class. Srimati Indulekha Guha, she is a brilliant student actually. She is from, if you know, Presidency College, Calcutta, one of the leading institute of India actually, not only West Bengal. Calcutta University is one of the leading institute of India. And she has done their bachelor's and her master's. Now she is in US doing her PhD program, the PhD student at Purdue University. And she's associated with this movement, like we say that is Jagat Bandhu movement, Mahanambrata movement rather, or Jagat Bandhu movement, Prabhu Jagat Bandhu Mahanam movement. In short, Mahanam movement, associated with it for a long time. She's a good speaker, and she will speak on world-renowned philosopher and spiritual guide, Dr. Mahanambrata Brahmachari today. Indu, it's all yours now. You are co-host, so you can share the screen. Anything you want, it's all yours.
Thank you, Shamal uncle. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to see you all after a very long time. I'm going to give you guys some glimpses of Dr. Mahanambrata Brahmachari's life. As Shamal uncle keeps telling you, he is the inspiration behind our spiritual path. He is the reason why we are here today. And I think it's great that we all want to know a little bit more about him, his life. You know, it's very inspiring, it's very encouraging and motivating, especially to all of us who are just, you know, who have just started to walk on this path, who have started to learn about spirituality and Hinduism and our religion. And I don't know usually how these classes go, but as I keep talking, if there's anything that you guys don't understand, or if there are any questions that you have, please feel free to just stop me, interrupt me, ask me as many questions as you want. If I can't answer the questions, I will defer them to one of the other educators that you have here. And
I just want to say that you can also use the chat box, and we'll get to those questions, or again, one of the other people will get you the answers. So interrupt and or use the chat box.
Yeah.
Okay, one quick comment here. If there are many questions in the middle, then it may change your flow. I will request the student to write their questions or chat box, and then at the end there are time slot for there for question and answer. So
Okay.
that would be better in a way so that you can finish in your own planning, because you have planned something. I don't want it to be too much of affected. So let's do like that way. If not, if it is okay with everybody.
Okay. Sounds
All
good.
right. And so you write down
Okay.
your questions or you put on the chat box, and Titi Didi will monitor those chat box to finally put up all the questions at the end. How about that? Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah,
But
that sounds good.
guys want, urgently, that's also fine. I'm going to share my screen now. Please let me know if you guys can see my slides.
Yep, we can see it.
Yes, I can see also. I hope that everybody can see it.
Perfect. Okay, so like I said, we are going to talk about Dr. Mahanambrata Brahmachari. And so we are going to, there's a lot in his life to be covered for sure. So there, we are going to select some of the really, really important events in his life, and or some of the events that I think you guys might find really interesting and inspiring. And we are going to talk about those. But throughout the course of those events, I'm going to want to cover the entirety of his life in brief. So, okay, so the first thing, of course, is Bankim was his name. Before he became Dr. Mahanambrata Brahmachari, the world-renowned philosopher, saint, Vaishnavite that we know. When he was a baby, his parents named him Bankim. And a very interesting thing about his birth was that he was not born in a hospital or in a room. In those days, in olden days, mothers used to give birth in a, sanctified room outside the house, but he wasn't born like that. He was born under the open sky. And we all believed that this was kind of an indication, it was a sign from above that this was a man who was not going to be held together by the bonds of the material world. This was a man who was born under the open canopy of stars, and he was going to lead a life of enlightenment and freedom. As with all of us, so this is a picture of Bankim's mother, Kamini Sundari Devi. As with all of us, our mothers and fathers play a very, very important role throughout our lives, throughout our education, throughout our spiritual progress. And Bankim was no exception. His mother, his father and mother, and especially his mother, played a very, very pivotal part in his life. When Bankim was young, his father fell severely ill and he lost his sight. He became blind. So his mother was the one who mainly brought him up through her determination and her sacrifice and her devotion. She is the one who made sure that he got a proper education. She's the one who mainly encouraged him to, of course, his father also, but she was the one whose devotion, whose spiritual dedication Bankim emulated. All the because his father had lost his sight at that time and he could not read. Bankim was the one who used to read Ramayana and Mahabharata and all the Hindu spiritual scriptures to his father, and his mother would also, teach him about the various important aspects of our religious life. So from his mother and his father, this foundation of religion and spirituality was built inside him. And because from very, very early age itself, he sort of knew that this was the kind of path that he wanted to follow in his life. It was only a matter of time before he decided to, give up the material world, give up family life, and go fully fledged into the world of spirituality and renouncement. But there's a story behind how that happened, and I'm going to tell you guys that story. So when Bankim was 9 or 10 years old, he was a very young child. He was looking for spiritual inspiration. He was looking for guidance, basically. So at that time, Bankim had a friend, a very dear friend. He was a little older than him, and his name was Rajendra. And people used to call him Maharaj, which means King of Kings. Now, Rajendra was already very learned in religion and spirituality and all aspects of life, really. And Rajendra was this friend, we all, some of you already maybe have a friend like that, and some of you might, when you grow up a little more, have a friend like that. We all have this friend who we look up to, who's maybe a little older than us, who's kind of like, who is mainly a friend, but also a guide in our lives, who inspires us. So Rajendra or Maharaj was like that for Bankim. And Rajendra used to teach Bankim a lot about life, about religion, about spirituality, and some of the core basic questions that we all have when we go forward in life. Rajendra was the one who, taught Bankim to ask those questions and then gave him the proper answers to those questions. So one day, when Bankim and Rajendra were spending time together, Rajendra gave him this little piece of paper. And on that paper, he wrote down 5 questions. And these 5 questions are the ones that you see on the slides today. He wrote them down in Bengali, but I have translated them in English for you. And these 5 questions are the ones, if you know the answers to them, and if you can act accordingly in your life, then your life is set, basically. So the first question that Rajendra asked Bankim to wonder about was, from where have we all come? The second question was, who are we? The third question is, why have we come to this earth? The fourth is, where are we going after this? And the fifth question is, what is important in life to know and to realize? So for all of us, I'm sure these questions, the answers to these questions are going to be different, right? Where have we come from? We all have different parents. We've come from them. Who are we? We are someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's granddaughter, family-wise, professional life-wise. We all have different identities. Why have we come here? You guys all have career ambitions. There are things you want to do. Someone wants to become a doctor, astronaut, or something. Where are we going after this? Most of us don't really have a clue, right? And what's important to know in life? Every one of us has different answers for this. But you guys, what Rajendra told Bankim was revealing, that no, all of this is not different for all of us. It's actually the same. And that is what unites us. And that is what we need to realize through the course of our lives. Where have we all come from? So for all of us who are in this class, you guys have, I'm sure, learned about the Supreme Godhead. You've learned about Sri Krishna. And we have all come from his feet. We were all there with him before we got born. We were part of his divine Leela, or his divine life in Golok. That's where we've all come from. That's our identity. That's our true identity. Then once we come into this world, we have very, very different identities. Who are we? We are the, servants, or the people who serve Lord Krishna. We are, that's where we came from, and that is our function. Why have we come to this earth? Through our actions, through our words and deeds. What we want to do is we want to serve Lord Krishna and his people Who are his people? We are all his people. So by serving each other, by doing good for each other, we are serving Lord Krishna. We are serving God. And that's why we've come to this earth. Despite all of our different career choices, which are great, which are fine. Someone wants to be a doctor, great. Someone wants to be an engineer, great. Someone wants to be a teacher, amazing. But through all of our careers and professional lives, our main aim should be to serve the Lord. And that's why we have come. And where are we going back? Now we have an answer to a question that we perhaps didn't know. We are all going to go back to the same place we came from, which is Lord Krishna's feet. And what's real or what is important in life is what I already sort of hinted before, that serving Lord Krishna and knowing that God and those who have served God before, those are the ones who need to be emulated. Those are the ones who need to be followed. That's something important that we need to realize in this life. So Rajendra obviously did a much better job of explaining all of this than I have done to you guys. But Bankim was inspired. And for 2 hours, they roamed through the forests or the, places of Bankim's birth. And Rajendra explained all of this in detail to Bankim. And then something more surprising happened. So you all know about Prabhu Jagatbandhu. He is the Leela combination of Sri Krishna and Sri Gauranga. And he is the supreme Godhead that we all worship, right? So Bankim was having dreams about Prabhu. Night after night, he would have these dreams where Prabhu would be calling to him. And Rajendra didn't know about this. He didn't know that Bankim was having these dreams. But one day, Rajendra comes to Bankim and shows him a picture of Prabhu and says to him, "Is this the person you have been dreaming about?" And Bankim is astonished. He's like, "How do you know that I have been dreaming about this person?" And then Rajendra tells him that, "Look, the person that you are dreaming about is the Godhead. He is Prabhu Jagatbandhu. He is now at Faridpur Sri Angan, and if you want to really, really meet him and get his darshan, then I can take you to him." So Bankim keeps dreaming about Prabhu Jagatbandhu Sundar after this, and then one day he cannot contain his eagerness to meet Prabhu. He's like, "I have to. I cannot go without seeing him in person any longer." And then Bankim takes Rajendra's help, and Bankim, Rajendra, and another friend of theirs, whose name was Ashutosh, the three of them form a fellowship of sorts. And the three of them go to Faridpur Sri Angan from Bankim's hometown and meet Prabhu Jagatbandhu. And they walk for 80 miles to meet him. Do you know, does any of you have an idea how long it takes an average person to walk a mile? It takes about 20 to 25 minutes. So 80 miles is more than a day's walk, which in their eagerness and, in their spiritual strength, they do it within one day. In less than a day, they run from, Bankim's hometown to Faridpur to meet Prabhu, running 80 miles, and just out of this extreme eagerness to see Prabhu. And once they reach Sri Angan, there's a bit of disappointment in store. So this is a sort of a new picture of Sri Angan. It's renovated now. Back then, when Bankim went there, it used to be much less grand. It was like a smaller building with some outhouses, and Prabhu used to stay in a little small room inside this ashram. And once they reached, Bankim finds out that Prabhu is not there. He's not in the ashram. He's gone on a small, sort of a walk with his disciples and the followers who used to be there to serve him. So Bankim decides to wait, and when he can see that Prabhu is approaching, so Prabhu during those times he didn't used to walk. His disciples used to carry him on a chair, like a throne. He would be sitting on that throne, and his disciples would be carrying. So he could glimpse Prabhu when he was approaching Sri Angan, and Bankim was mesmerized. He was speechless, and the only thing he could think of when he saw Prabhu for the first time like that was, I need to get a better look. I need to be closer to him. And so that's exactly what he does. He decides that, there are a lot of people around. I'm a small boy. What I'm going to do is when they are entering Sri Angan, I'm sort of going to slip in between their legs and I'm going to enter Prabhu's chamber, and then I'm going to be able to get a closer look. But there is this one disciple who catches on to Bankim's plan, and he sort of pushes him away, and he's like, no, who are you, small child? Where have you come from? You can't, no one is allowed inside Prabhu's room. You can't go in. And he sort of pushes him away on the side of the road, and Bankim falls down, and he's so disappointed and he's so sad at not being able to go closer to Prabhu that he immediately faints. And after that, when he, regains consciousness, he sees that he is inside Prabhu's room. And he can see Prabhu lying there on the bed in his room, and his bedding and sheets are all white, like the foam of milk, and he's mesmerized by the glow, by the beauty of Prabhu's entire being. And all he can do is just stare at Prabhu. And then he notices another person in the room. He sees that there is this man who is sitting there, who evidently, it seems, is the one who had rescued Bankim and carried him to Prabhu's room. Now, this person was Sripad Mahendraji. Later on, he becomes Bankim's guru when he is initiated in his spiritual life. And this is a picture of Sripad Mahendraji. He was Bankim's guru, spiritual guide, and not just in his spiritual life, but in all aspects of his life, Sripad Mahendraji had a formative role. It was under his instructions that Bankim did everything. And now, once Sripad Mahendraji, who is the teacher, and Bankim, who is the pupil, they have met. Now Bankim's real spiritual life begins. Now, Sripad Mahendraji gives him the name Mahanam, and that's how we come to know about today's Mahanambrata Brahmachari. This is that crucial time, this is that crucial moment in his life when after seeing Prabhu Jagat Bandhu, after meeting Sripad Mahendraji, his entire life transforms. He always had that seed of spirituality inside him, right? But you need someone to plant that seed, to water that seed, and then it starts growing into a sapling and then a huge tree that we know today as Mahanambrata Brahmachari. And that's exactly what happened that day. In that small dark room lit by Prabhu's glow, that Bankim became Mahanambrata, and Sripad Mahendraji joined him to Prabhu for the rest of his life. Bankim worshipped Prabhu's feet with tulsi and chandan, and submitted his entire life to Prabhu's service. And that was a complete, total, and utter submission. Since that day on, every single thing that has happened in Mahanambrata Brahmachari's life has been an ode, has been a testament to this complete submission and faith in Prabhu and his Guru, Sripad Mahendraji. So from then onwards, it was only a matter of time. Very soon, Bankim, who we will call Mahanam from now on, because that's his new identity. Mahanam decides that he no longer wants to live at home. He wants to become an ashramite monk. So he goes to his guru, Sripad Mahendraji, and he says that, look, I cannot, this family life is not for me. I want to leave everything and I want to give myself to the service of the Lord. But Mahendraji is like, look, that's fine, but you cannot become an ashramite monk without completing your education. So you have to matriculate, which was pass the 10th standard examination, and only then you can become a monk. So Mahanam follows his guru's orders without questions, and he matriculates. And then finally, after his father's demise, he takes leave of his mother, and he comes full time to Faridpur, where Prabhu was, where he first came to meet Prabhu, and he becomes a ashramite monk. But at the same time, Mahendraji makes sure that his education continues. First, he, completes his undergraduate education. He does his bachelor's in Sanskrit, and then he goes to the University of Calcutta. He stays in this particular institution that we have in Kolkata. Some of you might have even visited if you've ever been to Kolkata, called Mahaudharan Math. It used to be the very first ashram that we have in Kolkata, and that's where Mahanam stayed during his master's, during his postgraduate education. And he completed master's in 2 subjects. At first, he completed his master's in Sanskrit, and then also, because Sripad Mahendraji was not satisfied, he said that, okay, you have completed your education, your master's in Sanskrit, you have really good knowledge of Indian philosophy, of Indian religious thought, but what about Western philosophy? You don't know anything about that. You need to also do a master's in philosophy to get an exposure to all of this. And all of these decisions that Sripad Mahendraji took, for Mahanam, he followed them without question. And this is where that lesson of complete submission, of complete faith comes in. When I go to later parts of the story, you will all realize why all of these steps were so important. But at that time, Mahanam didn't know that why his teacher, his guru, was pushing him to get 2 masters. It's a bit crazy, but he did it. And this is the lesson that I want all of you guys to take home with you today, that many times in life we don't know why something is happening. We don't know where fate is leading us. But at that time, it's important to have faith, because we don't have the kind of foresight, we don't have the kind of, plan that God has for us. And we need to keep faith in God's plans. Okay, so Mahanam completes his education. He's just appeared for his exam for his master's in philosophy. And at this time, something surprising happens. The ashram in Faridpur, where Sripad Mahendraji is staying, an invitation comes from the United States of America, where we are all here right now. And this invitation asks for a representative of the religious order of Mahanam Sampradaya, to which Sripad Mahendraji and Mahanambrata ji, they all belong. The Sampradaya, which was formed to propagate the word of Prabhu Jagat Bandhu, to send his message, across the world. So invitation comes for a representative to represent Mahanam Sampradaya. And this invitation comes from the then president of the United States, Herbert Hoover, for this big gathering of religions called the World Fellowship of Faiths. And this was in 1933, so it was a long time ago. During that time, all of you who might be interested in quizzing and general knowledge know that Herbert Hoover was the president of the United States. The United States had just been recovering from a huge economic depression and recession, and people were losing faith in a lot of things, and they were looking for religion and spirituality. They were looking towards religion and spirituality to invigorate them, to inspire them. And so they decided to have this big World Fellowship of Faiths, where they invited representatives from many religious orders all across the world. And hence Sripad Mahendraji received this invitation for a representative from Mahanam Sampradaya, and he decides to send Mahanambrata to the United States. And during this time, Mahanam is only 28 years old. I know most of you are like much younger than that, but imagine a 28-year-old youth having to travel to like a completely new place, a completely different place from where he was brought up, a completely different culture, and to do something really scary, to speak to a huge crowd of people. And Mahanam had never in his entire life spoken publicly in English. He had never in his entire life till then even spoken publicly at all. But this is the person that Sripad Mahendraji chose to send to the United States. And again, Mahanam unquestioningly followed his guru's order, because he knew that if Sripad Mahendraji was asking him to do something, then he is the one who is going to give him the strength to do it as well. So with that in mind, this is a picture of young Mahanambrata in America, a 28-year-old youth from a small village in Bangladesh who had come to the United States to preach the word of Prabhu Jagat Bandhu. So once, and the way he traveled to the United States, that story is really inspiring, and that if I start talking about it, it's going to make this whole lecture about that, but I just hope to give you some idea. He had almost no money when he started from Faridpur. Whatever money he had was spent between his trip from Bangladesh to Mumbai. During those times, people used to take ships to come to the US. They used to cross the Atlantic Ocean and they used to land in New York. So what people would do is they would take a ship from Mumbai, they would come to Europe, they would come to either Venice or Paris or somewhere like that, and then from there they would take a ship and cross the entire Atlantic. It would take around 10 to 15 days to cross the Atlantic. and then they would reach the United States. So Mahanam traveled in this way. He didn't fly. And whatever money he had was finished by the time he came to Mumbai. So he only had money to travel till Mumbai. And do you know what he did after that? To get some passage money to travel from Mumbai to Europe. During those days, so he was a brilliant student, by the way. He got a class first in his master's at Calcutta University. And during those days, and even now, when you get a first class first, that is, you top your class, they used to give you a gold medal. They still give gold medals, but they are not. They have nothing to do with the real medal anymore. They are not really gold anymore. But during those days, gold medal meant a gold medal. So it was plated with gold. So it was valuable. So what Mahanam did is he pawned his gold medal from his masters, and whatever money he got from pawning that gold medal, he spent that money to finance the rest of his passage. But even that money could take him only as far as Venice. So he traveled from Mumbai to Venice with this with whatever money he could get from pawning his gold medal. And throughout this entire journey, his only hope and support was his infinite faith in Prabhupada and his Gurudev, Sripad Mahendraji. And if Mahanambrata Brahmachari's life could be summed up in one sentence, it would be: when one submits completely to God, his entire life is uplifted by God. And numerous incidents, especially, his entire life is testament to faith. If anyone ever has any doubts that life can be lived with faith and complete submission to God, then one just needs to look at his life. In fact, you don't even have to look at his entire life. Just look at this journey from India to the United States. And it's their witness, the fact that you can completely submit your life to God and He will guide you through it. But yes, your faith must hold strong and it must not waver, which is much easier said than done. And Mahanam had to face all of these tests throughout this entire journey. And with people like Dr. Mahanambrata Brahmachari to set an example, we can all strive to have a little more faith. Maybe it won't be as much as his, but we will be making progress. So anyway, getting back to this journey, he came from Mumbai to Venice, and once he was in Venice, he again had exhausted all his supplies. He was in this strange city and he had no one there. He was just roaming about the streets of Venice, and he just happened to come across this little outlet of this particular company, which you guys might be familiar with. Thomas Cook and Sons is like a really famous and old travel agent, and he enters their office, and he finds out miraculously that he has received a money order of 450 rupees from India, and with this money he manages to buy his passage from Venice to New York, which is almost short of his final destination. And then once he reaches New York, another really interesting thing happens. So while he was on the ship from Venice to New York, he had very little money with him. And in those days, if you had to enter the United States, you needed to have at least $100 with you. If you didn't have that money, you weren't allowed to enter the United States, because the US government needed to know that you had enough money to take care of yourself in case of emergencies when you're here. Makes sense, right? But Mahanam didn't have this kind of money. He only had $20, even less than that. So $100 was out of question for him. So he was guided by the head steward of the ship in which he was traveling that, look, it's fine, you don't have the money. When the immigration official asks you about money, just lie to them. Tell them you have $100 held with us. And we are going to vouch for you. It's not a problem. Mahanam refuses to lie. He says that I've made this entire journey honestly, and I have never uttered a single lie throughout this time where I have faced so much difficulty, so much obstacle. And now you're asking me to lie? I cannot do it. And when the immigration official asks him, do you have enough money to enter the United States? Do you have $100? Mahanam stays quiet. He does not lie. He cannot lie. And that's when the head steward of the ship swoops into his rescue. He sort of, hides Mahanam from view, and he says to the immigration official, look, this is Mr. Brahmachari. All his paperwork is fine. All his money is with us. He's totally fine to enter. Just let him go. And the immigration official respects the head steward. He's a big deal. He's a big official, right? So he's like, yeah, okay, great. And he lets Mahanam go. But Mahanam never lies. He never compromises his ideals, because his ideals and his faith are what makes him who he is, right? So then he finally arrives in Chicago, which is where this big, festival of religions, this World Fellowship of Faiths is happening. And again, he is in this very strange and different land. He has no friends, he has no contact, he has no family. And he reaches the headquarters of the World Fellowship of Faiths, and he makes many new friends throughout his time here. And initially, he lives with these two people, Mr. and Mrs. Propson. Mahanam didn't have a place to stay in Chicago. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know what to do. But miraculously, and again, through Prabhu's grace, through his faith in Prabhu, he finds a place to live. Mr. and Mrs. Propson are this really respectable couple who take Mahanam in. Mr. Propson is a professor of philosophy. They're delighted to have Mahanam in their home. He also makes other friends like Charles F. Weller, who is the president of this big festival of religions, the World Fellowship of Faiths that's happening. Kedarnath Dasgupta, who's another one of the officials who's organizing this World Fellowship. And there's this really interesting story of this place where Mahanam lives with Mr. and Mrs. Propson, where he almost miraculously meets them, and they decide to take him in. And Mrs. Propson tells him later that, do you know, Mr. Brahmachari, couple of months before you came to us, before we met you and decided to take you in to live with us, I had this dream, this really, really strange dream that someone, a monk or an ascetic from India, is going to come to my house and is going to live with us. So again, everything that happens in Mahanam's life is a testament to faith, is a testament to how Prabhu, how God smooths everything out, sorts everything out in his life because of this immense faith that he has. And once Mahanam starts, delivering his lectures in this festival of religions, in the World Fellowship of Faiths, he becomes really, really famous. He becomes a religious phenomenon in the United States after his first few lectures in the World Fellowship proceedings. Newspapers cover his arrival, and they're astonished by this young Hindu monk who's come almost out of nowhere, and now he's dazzling everyone with his elocution, with his knowledge. And one of the really impressive things was he never spoke from notes. He never, wrote things down that he wanted to say in these lectures. He would speak extempore, which means that everything would come out of his mind. And the way he used to justify that is he used to say that if I am going to make notes and say those things out loud later, it means that I am saying what I think, what I feel. But if I speak extempore, if I speak what is coming to my mind at that time, it means that God is speaking through me. Again, we see this example of faith. We see this example of complete submission to Prabhu. He's as if he is determined not to do things, through his own judgment and intellect, but be guided by Prabhu throughout all of his actions. When he speaks extempore, when he speaks without preparation, he feels as if Prabhu is speaking through him. And those lectures worked wonders on the audience. They were inspiring, they were profound, and everyone was so impressed that they said, so this is one of the lecture halls that we visited in Chicago, where Mahanambrata ji delivered one of his lectures. He delivered like many such lectures, and this is just one of those places. They were so impressed that they said, we want you to stay. Mahanam came to the United States with a visa for 3 months. So which means that he could not stay in the United States beyond 3 months. But everyone, the organizers, the people were so impressed by his knowledge, by his elocution, that they wanted him to stay back. And the way that they wanted to do this was, they were like, okay, the only way to make you stay in the US beyond what your visa allows is you have to enroll as a student in a university in the United States. And if you enroll as a student, then you can stay for up to 4 or 5 years, because you can say that you are studying here, so you need to stay here. And a lot of us actually have come to the US, including me, with a similar kind of visa arrangement, where we come here to study, and we are allowed to stay here for 4 or 5 years. So Mahanambrata consents. Again, he thinks this is Prabhu's will, that he has to stay here for more, like where he planned to come for 3 months, he has to stay for 4 or 5 years. He again accepts this, and he's enrolled as a PhD student in the University of Chicago. And again, Mahanam doesn't have any money, so he does not have money to pay for tuition fees in the university. But yet again, by now this pattern has become very predictable. He is provided with scholarships from the School of Divinity. Again, through God's grace, through Prabhu's grace, he does not have to worry about all of these external issues. It's as if God is taking care of him, guarding him from all sides in his life. And he enrolls as a PhD student in the University of Chicago. Scholarships provided by the School of Divinity. He's spending his time lecturing in the United States. He is spending his time propagating the word of Prabhu. But at the same time, he is very, very mindful of how he is living in the US. He's still wearing khadi. He is not wearing Western garments. He's still restricting his diet. He is making friends. He is inspiring people. He is studying in the university. Does someone have a question?
Vidisha, do you have a question, honey? You have your hand raised.
She skipped the page.
I think you continue because you have to finish up. You are just in the middle. If
Yeah.
question you take, then it will be more time. So better to then question you can take care later. Maybe
Yeah, I'm
next
actually
session.
running late, which is why I skipped some pages. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so then yeah, he's living in America for 5 years, and he's inspired a lot of really famous American religious personalities. Then he travels to London as the international secretary of the World Fellowship of Faiths. He lectures there. And then finally, at the end of almost 5 years, he receives his doctorate from the University of Chicago. And a really interesting story here, actually, I'm going to skip the story in the interest of time. But yeah, and then he then he finishes his education in the United States. And finally, it's time for him to leave the US. And he then returns back to India after 5 years and 8 months in the United States, whereas originally he was supposed to stay only for 3 months. That 5 months should be 3 months, ignore that. And this is his doctorate degree that he received. And after receiving his doctorate, he did a US-Canada coast-to-coast tour in his last year in the United States, after which, so he, visited all over the US. He was all over the newspapers in whichever towns he used to visit. And then finally, he comes back to India. And once he is back in India, his Gurudev Sripad Mahendraji, when he receives news that he is at the train station, he says that Mahanam needs to come from the train station to the ashram by, doing this kind of this thing which is called a dandi, which means that throughout the journey, you have to keep bowing yourself and doing this Ashtang Pranam from the station to the ashram, which was a long way, but that's how his Gurudev wanted him to come. He just wanted to make sure that Mahanam, through all of his fame and his glory, hadn't lost his humility. And once Mahanam reached the ashram, his Gurudev, Sripad Mahendraji, hugged him and said that the Mahanam who I sent to America is the same Mahanam who has returned, because he had not, lost his humility. He had not lost his faith and his total submission. It was still fully there inside him. And then he was lecturing throughout India and Bangladesh. He had great fame in religious circles and, within common people in India and Bangladesh after coming back from the US. But he was lecturing on many different topics. And then his mother came to him and instructed him to exclusively, speak about Srimad Bhagavatam. And following his mother's advice, again, to the word, from then on, Mahanambrata Brahmachari ji decided that he will only speak on Srimad Bhagavatam and not on other topics. He would still from time to time lecture on other topics, but he would concentrate on the pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam. Then his entire life after coming back to India was in service to various aspects of life. Firstly, it was in service to his sampradaya, to his movement, to Mahanam Sampradaya. Secondly, it was in service to his motherland. This was when Bangladesh got independence. It got freedom from Pakistan. And he did a lot after Bangladesh's freedom for, the restoration of the oppressed people in Bangladesh. There was in service to scholasticism. During this time, he did so much research. He wrote so many books on various spiritual and religious aspects of Hinduism, of Indian philosophy, of Oriental philosophy. But very importantly, it was also in service to humanity. You know, he was guiding thousands of disciples and followers in spirituality and in traditions of bhakti, which is selfless and unconditional devotion to God. And most importantly, he was an acharya. An acharya is someone who does not just lecture, but shows what to do through his own actions. He's someone who sets an example. And this is what he did in his service to humanity. He set an example. He was one person, you know, but many personalities. And throughout his entire life, throughout his entire, throughout all the moments in his life, we see this particular statement, Lord's grace in my race, which is the name of a book that he had also written. And I think it really sums up his entire life as well. He was a monk, he was a strict disciplinarian, but at the same time, he was such a loving and gentle father figure to his disciples. He was a proud and confident scholar, but at the same time, he was a humble and emotional devotee. He was the uniter of many sects of Vaishnavism in Bengal, of religion. Being a uniting factor, at the same time, he was the main proponent of Mahanam Sampradaya, a particular sect, the proponent of Prabhu Jagatbandhu's teachings. And he was the foremost representative of this Sampradaya. But most importantly, what really defined him was holding unconditional faith in God. And Prabhu had guided every step of his life, of the life of the one who had completely submitted to his will. And with that, I'm going to end here. And if there are questions, I'm happy to take questions.
You want to stop the screen sharing so that you can see everybody? Yeah. You are done with this screen sharing?
Yeah, I'm done.
Any question, anybody? It's not possible to do in one session. Dr. Mahanambrata is so profound. His actions and his activities are so wide. It's not possible to cover in one lecture, but Indu managed to do it to some extent, the glimpse of his life. So you have to think about this. Will be Indu, you can load it to the Google's Classroom. I made you the teacher there, so you can load it there so that they can see your document in details. Also, you skip a lot of things, I know. So that's one thing. And second thing, any question comes in your mind, you can ask now. If not, next class we'll cover some of the questions. I don't know whether Indu will be able to join or not. Indu, if you like, next class you can continue on this if you like, because you might have skipped a lot. Think yourself whether you did up to your expectation or satisfaction or not. If you think otherwise, then you're most welcome to continue this for the next class, if you want.
Okay.
So with that, if you know your decision, then we can conclude the class accordingly. We can extend.
Chamala, I had one thing. I wanted to ask you something. Have the kids been introduced to the book Lord's Grace in My Race? I'm sure they have been, right? Have they been introduced to it, or have they read the book?
No, Lord's Grace in My Race is the book. I don't think that the participant knows, but at least she referred it. So if it may click someday, someone later in life, that, oh, the faith, faith in the Lord, like Gita's 22nd verse of 9th chapter, Ananya Chintayanto Mang Jajana Purjupashati, Teishang Nitta Vijuktanang Jugakshemang Baham. Whoever worships me, depend on me, surrender to me with wholeheartedly, I take care of them. That's a perfect Gita Slok, what Hindu
Right.
was trying to highlight today. And Lord's Grace in My Race is a book I don't think the students are young enough and they are not, going into details of a lot of things. So that book is not known to them yet.
I see.
But they know the
Because-
name now. Now they know the
Okay.
name.
Because I'm not too sure about the age group of the kids here.
Yeah, age group like 5, 6 to 15, 14, 15, and even some are,
Okay.
it's open to everybody, to any age.
Right,
actually.
right. So for
But,
the teenagers, I mean, I think it's not only is it what Hindu said, of course, about faith, but also just to read. And I think in my experience, it was one of the most interesting books that I've ever read. Besides the faith and everything, so interesting. The way
It's such an
adventure, exactly. It is like what do you call that? The British kid. I think that book is, forget about religion or faith or whatever. Just to read how he did it,
right.
how everything fell in place. It is absolutely magical a book, and I would seriously encourage. All the kids to at least read it. And you guys are all well matured in this country, and you will find it amazing. It is an unbelievable book. So please read it. It's a chotto boy, and you will love it. And usually people finish it in one sitting. They don't even keep it aside and come back to it. It's so interesting.
Yeah, that can be one session next time if possible. And but
I
the
think it'll be good.
name of the book itself tells the summary of it. Lord's Grace in My Race.
Fabulous.
Race is not easy, very difficult one, almost impossible one. But he did it with Lord's grace only. Yes.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
So Indu, it's your decision now to tell whether you want to continue another session to, because a lot of things I believe you probably wanted to say, but because of time constraint.
It's difficult for me next weekend.
Okay.
I have some work.
Okay.
So maybe some other time.
Okay, some other time. All right. So with that, any question comes, we'll take it locally next week, because today is really, we are overtime little bit. What we'll do today now, thank you very much, Indu, for making this, topic live and really interesting in a very precise way.
Very different organizing and saying something with kids in mind, because I usually,
of course, I know. It's difficult, especially when there are a lot of young children. It's very difficult. I know, extremely understand. It is extremely difficult, but you did the impossible job.
You guys.
Yes, yes, but you did it a very good thing, and we'll take it from there. And hopefully, in the near future, you tell me, maybe after you thought over, if you have some time later, we'll arrange another session for that. All right. With that, your questions and answers. If you have some quick questions, you can ask now. Quick 1 minute or 2 minute question. Otherwise, you'll go ahead. If anyone has a question. Ankush, do you have a question or not? I don't think you have a question. You just raised your hand, is it? Ankush, you have a question? Talk. No question, I know. Okay, so raise question who have really a question. All right, with that, we are going to the last part, the ending kirtan. For ending kirtan, I will screen share and do the Hare Krishna kirtan by 9 girls. You'll see how beautiful it is. It's like 18 minutes, but I'll stop after maybe a couple of minutes. That's it. But you'll see a glimpse of it. YouTube, you get a huge lot of kirtans these days. I'll just do the screenshot and do it, and then we'll be done. Just few minutes, okay? Here we go, screenshot. Let me see if I can see it somewhere. Hold on. If you want, you can do with them, practice. That's the best part of it. If you want, you can practice with them. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Can you do
Hare
please?
Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. We are going to end it soon because continues for quite some time, 18 minutes. We are going to end it. If you want to practice with them a little bit, and we are going to end it in a minute now. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Hare. Okay, so you heard it. You saw the faces of those 9 girls. Do you think they're just doing because their seniors asked, their parents asked them to do? It's again the faith. What Indu said about Mahanambrata, faith and complete surrender. It's a big thing. It's not easy to come. It will come in course of time. But you have to have practice, continue it, then it comes. And this kind of thing, they looks like they can do it with their face expression. Happily they are doing it. They can continue for hours and hours. Looks like it comes from within. And if that is the case, Lord is behind you to help. That's what the sloka I said, 9th chapter, 22nd verse. Anunna chintayantu mang jejana pujjupashati teishang nitta vijukta anang jugakshemang baham. Lord says, if he who worships me, surrenders unto me wholeheartedly, then I am behind them. Spiritual matters as well as worldly matters. Everything I take care for them. See what a promise, what a, Lord's giving what to you. He's behind us always if we are surrendered to him, if we are complete faith in him. That's what Mahanambrata shows us the example. We have to emulate it. For today, this is the summary of today. Indu, thank you very much. So we'll meet next week. With that, Hare Krishna, Jai Radhe, Jai Jagadbandhu, everybody.
Hare
Unless
Krishna,
any other
Jai Radhe,
Hare Krishna, Jai Radhe.
Bye.